Welcome everyone to this video where I will try to explain in detail all the statistic in Vagrant Story, the crafting system, the armor and all that stuff. So originally I wanted to do only a crafting video, but I figured that if you don't know how the statistics interact with each other and how the armor works and everything, that wouldn't be that great, right? Because you will only have a partial amount of information. So let's start by looking at the status screen. So the first thing you need to know is that every entity in the game, either Ashley or the enemies, have 6 basic stats. Okay, you have HP, MP, risk, strength, intelligence and agility. Okay, some of those are self-explanatory, but let's just go through them one by one. HP is your life. Game ends when HP reaches 0. If you want to kill an enemy, you need to reduce their HP to 0. MP, magic points used for casting spells. You want to cast a spell, you're gonna need a certain amount of MPs, and you're gonna use that amount of MPs. You don't have enough MPs, you can't cast the spell. Easy as that. Risk is a little bit more complicated. Risk is basically the balancing system of the game, as I already explained. High risk means you will receive more damage and will be less likely to score hits. So whenever you use your weapon, like you strike the enemy, you will increase your risk. Now, how much the risk increases by depends on your weapon. We'll see later that weapons have a base risk value. That's the risk that is added to your risk when you do the first strike. Every subsequent strike will depend on your abilities. So let me actually show you that real quick. If you go battle abilities chain, you see that there's a value of risk on the bottom left. That's the risk you get after the first attack by using those. And you also have risk when you use defensive abilities, so those will actually add to your risk as well. But the first hit depends on your weapon. So some weapons have like 1 risk, 2 risk or 3 risk. I think the maximum you can find is 3 risk. So there's that. But what does the risk do? Well, the higher your risk, the lower your accuracy will be. You lose 1% on accuracy for every point of risk. And you also lose defense, so you will take more damage with higher risk. I'm not sure how much defense you lose per point, but I know for a fact that at maximum risk, 100 points, your defenses will be a third of what they should be at 0 risk. So you're essentially taking triple damage at full risk. So yeah, keep your risk low, pretty much. And it's pretty much, I mean, it's made because the game wants you to kill an enemy with as fewer hits as possible. It's pretty much what it is. I said that I said pretty much already 3 times, but you get it. Risk is there so that you don't just, you know, hit an enemy a million times and kill it. But the game wants you to be like, okay, you need to build up against the weaknesses of the enemy so that you kill it in like 5 hits instead of 50, you know? Enemies have risk, and it works the same way as yours does, except that it's hard to see that effect take effect because, yeah, enemies when they attack they gain risk, but just like you, they lose risk with time. And it's very unlikely that an enemy attacks you enough times so that you can actually see them miss because of high risk. So yeah, they do have risk, but it's pretty much, again, it's almost as though they don't have risk. But they do. Just know it is there. You cannot build around enemies' risk, but it's there. And now, these 3 stats over here. Strength, intelligence, and agility. So strength level affects attack and defense power. So when you use your weapon and you strike with your weapon, you do your basic attack or you do a break art, your strength is compared to the enemy's strength in determining the damage. At the same time, when an enemy attacks you with a basic attack or a special attack, their strength is compared to your strength to see how much damage it does. Of course, there are other variables later, but the base damage is comparing the strength of the target and the strength of the attacker. Intelligence works the same way except for spells. So when you use magic on an enemy, your intelligence is compared with their intelligence. When an enemy casts a spell on you, their intelligence is compared to your intelligence. So it works the same way as strength. The formula is actually the same. It just replaces its strength with intelligence. Also affects the strength of your heals. So the more intelligence you have, the more you'll heal yourself with the heal spell. Agility affects chance to hit and evade. You know when you open your target sphere and you look at an enemy, you see the percentage? That's the agility comes into place. So again, your agility will be compared with the enemy's agility, and at the same time when an enemy hits you, their agility will be compared to your agility to determine their hit chance. Just like with risk, for every point of agility you gain, you'll gain, quote unquote, 1% of accuracy. So if you're in battle and you open a target sphere, you see like 50%, and then you boost your agility by 10 points, then you'll get 60%, because every point of agility is 1% in accuracy. So those are the 6 main stats. Now you can see there are 2 columns here. It says organic and equipped, and they look the same right now. We'll come back to them when we'll discuss armor. As of right now, I have nothing. I've de-equipped everything from Ashley so that I can demonstrate something later. But this is the status screen. Keep in mind that, as I said if you're watching my Let's Play, last time we talked about the status screen a little bit, where you can see class affinity and types for all enemies. You can see them from Ashley, although he has 0 and everything, because it doesn't count the armor he's wearing. But if you have other enemies in the same room, you can check them out. And if you have analyzed them with the analysis spell, you can see all of their stuff they're carrying, what their attributes are, all the affinities and whatnot. But yeah, this is the status screen. We'll come back to it. Actually, I don't know if I want to talk about this yet. Might as well do it. So these are the body parts of Ashley. This is important because enemies can hit you in different body parts. And right now they're excellent. As you get hit in different parts, they will degrade. I think they go from excellent to good to bad to... Well, I don't remember the scale, but basically the last one, if they reach 0 HP, is called dying. If any of these parts reach the dying status, Ashley will suffer a status effect. So for the right arm, it will be attack 50%, so you'll do half damage. For left arm, you have parry 50%, which actually will not decrease the blocking because it doesn't really block. It's more like evade 50%. Your evasion rate will be down by 50%. If your head is dying, you'll be silent, so you won't be able to cast spells. You'll still be able to read grimoires though, since they count as using items. If your body is dying, you get a special effect called risk 200%. And what that does is basically doubles all risk gain, and also raises your risk steadily as your target sphere is open. That's pretty rare to get that, but it may happen. And if your legs are dying, your movement speed is halved. Now you might have noticed that enemies don't seem to suffer those same status ailments as you do. Well, if you hit them in the legs, maybe you'll get the 50% move 50%. So that is true for enemies. You can slow them down by hitting them in the legs, or if they're flying enemies, you have to hit their wings. But they don't seem to suffer any of the other ones. What actually happens for enemies is a little different. So enemies have several moves they can perform. Maybe they have like a normal attack, maybe a spell, maybe a special attack, and so on. They have a list of things they can do. All of these things are tied to one or more body parts. If you disable all the body parts tied to one specific attack, you'll disable it. For example, the first boss, the Minotaur, has an attack called Giga Rush. That attack is tied to its head. Break its head, and you won't be able to use it. The second boss, the Dullahan, has a spell called Drain Heart. And that spell is tied to his abdomen. So if you bring his abdomen to the dying status, you won't be able to use it. Some enemies have basic attacks tied to the right arm. So if you break the right arm, they won't be able to use their basic attacks. Usually, enemies that can cast spells have those spells attached to the head. So if you break their heads, they won't be able to cast any spells. Not all of them, because as I said, the Dullahan had a spell tied to the abdomen. So it might not always work. but for the majority of the cases it does. So you can kind of silence them, but you're not really. It's not really what you're doing. You're kind of disabling certain attacks depending on the body parts you hit. And again, some attacks are like very easy. Like you block spells by attacking the head. You block some physical attacks by, you know, attacking the right arm because that's what they swing with. There are some enemies that are left-handed, and maybe you should attack the left arm there. But yeah, that's pretty much how it works for enemies. So yeah, we talked about the status screen and body part conditions and stuff like that. I feel like we should move on weapons. So let's go ahead and go to the items. Let's talk about the item menu real quick, because it is by far the most important menu in the entire game. So look at all the icons on the top left. There are several icons. So yeah, you have from the left you have options, weapons, blades, grips, shields, armor, gems, and miscellaneous items. So you can really all of these ones in the middle are just to check your stuff and reorder it. Well, in here you can actually use stuff other than reorder it. So if I, for example, select the cure bomb twice, there you go. See, I can use it. But you can just manually reorder stuff if you want. And from the option menu, this is where you actually do stuff, where you equip things and you set up your weapons. All the others are just to look up your stuff and reorder it as you'd like. They're not entirely useless, because reordering your stuff may be very useful when you do a lot of crafting, so you have all your stuff, you know, sorted out. But yeah, don't expect to do anything in these menus other than, you know, inventory management. By far, the most important part is this menu right here, the option, the equip, and the setup. So of course, equip is self-explanatory, you just go and change your equipment. Very easy. It's the setup that we'll have to actually look into later. For now, let's look at a weapon. And let's go square and look at it, and there's a lot of information for a weapon. So let's break it down real quick. The most important information about weapons, armor, is this part right here, the bottom right, because it's the base. These are the base stats. This is what tells you whether a weapon is better or worse than another one that has every other value of the same. So like, it doesn't matter where your class, affinity, and type is. If they're the same, you have to look at the base stats, because these will tell you everything. Will tell you the basics, and then everything else is a plus. But let's go through these in order. And again, there are two columns here. Now you really only have to look at the left column, because the right one is what it does when you equip it, which we'll get into. But let's just look at the organic column, the left one, because that's what the weapon does. So you have range. Range is how big your target sphere will be. The bigger the range, the more range you'll have, of course. Like, daggers will have very short ranges, and crossbow will have like maybe 8 of range, because they're, you know, the range is very high. This is a pole arm, this is the rusty nail. So that's a range of 5, which is pretty good. Then you have risk. This is what I was talking about before. This is the risk you are adding on your first attack. Remember, this is just the first attack of your combo. All the others will add risk depending on what abilities you're using. It says with each use of the weapon. It's really just the first attack of a combo. Weapon attack strength increases physical weapon damage. So this value is added to your strength while calculating damage. So when I strike with this weapon, my game will look at my base strength, then add this strength, and that will be used in the formula. So in this case, I will add 12 to my base strength when I attack with the rusty nail. Intelligence is the same. If I cast a spell with the rusty nail, my intelligence goes up by 2. And agility is almost always a minus. It says speed attribute based on weight increases chance to hit and evade attacks. Now this actually works both ways. So when I have this weapon equipped and I'm in battle mode and I attack an enemy, I will get a minus 7% on my accuracy. At the same time, when an enemy is attacking me, that enemy will get a, well, I'm gonna get a minus 7 on my agility, so I will be less likely to evade attacks. And of course, heavier weapons tend to have more negative modifiers, and lighter weapons like daggers and swords will have a less negative modifiers. I think you can get this to 0 if you want, and you can get this to positive if you add enough gems to a weapon. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative, attribute. Sometimes if you really, you know, power it up with gems, you can actually get it to positive, which is nice. So that means that, as you can see on the equipped column, it tells you that when I attack with this weapon, my strength will be 115, my intelligence will be 105, and my agility will be 96. And if I get attacked, my agility will be 96. The first two are only when you attack. So don't expect that because you equip this weapon, you have 115 strength, and when you are attacked, the game will think that you have 115. No. This is only when you attack. It says attack, strength, and attack intelligence. It doesn't say defense. Okay, this is only when you attack. When you attack, you get this boost. But agility is both on attack and defense. I know this can be weird, but trust me, that's how it works. When you get attacked, it's actually the armor that will give you strength and intelligence boost, as we'll see later. So yeah, these are the base stats of the weapon. Now, one thing you need to know in Vagrant Story, weapons are not a single entity. Weapons are composed of a blade and a grip. And as you can see, let's talk about base stats a little bit more. So if you look at this, I actually have to move from the screen. Let's go to the blade. Actually, tell me, game, what is... Can I... Rusty nail? No, I have to go to blades. Okay, so that... Oh, there it is, set. There you go. So this is the blade. And as if you go down here, you see that the blade has only 10 strength, 1 intelligence, and is -4 agility. And the grip that is set to that weapon is the speculum pole. And it does carry 2 strength, 1 intelligence, -3 agility. So if we go back to this, as you can see, the base stats are different. And it's the combined base stats of the blade and the grip that make the base stats of the weapon. Now, the grips are static entities, because they never change. But it's the blades that will change. The blades can grow, and the blades can be combined into each other. So later when we'll explain the combine option and how they evolve, it's really the blade that changes. And when you compare different blades, these are the stats you're gonna have to look for to see whether one is better than the other. Okay. Now let's talk more about weapons, because there are more stats. First of all, the thing at the bottom: class, weapon, bronze, pole arm, piercing, two-handed. So the class is really, it's really not just flavor text. If you go over here, there's more flavor text on the spear. Basic spear with a leaf-shaped edge. It doesn't say what class it is. Only weapons have a class. But really what class is, I think, and I can't really show you because I only have this weapon right now, but basically you can get like different classes. You can go like warrior's weapon, knightly weapon. I think the last one is divine weapon. You can get like legendary weapon. But all it does is basically tells you how strong, quote-unquote, the weapon is, and how well it's being trained toward a certain class or affinity. I'll bring this up later, but it's just flavor. It doesn't have anything to do with actual battle. Then down there it says bronze, polearm, piercing, two-handed. Bronze is the material of this weapon. We'll talk about materials later. Polearm, of course, it's polearm. That's the weapon type. Piercing is the damage type that it's doing. And two-handed means that I cannot use a shield while using this, basically. Weapons are either one-handed or two-handed. Right? You either can use a shield with them or you can't. Now, let's go over here. DP and PP. DP are damage points. I actually called them durability points during my Let's Play, but sure. It's the same thing. The meter decreases as the item is damaged. So at full durability point, a weapon is at its full strength. If you keep using it, you will slowly degrade in durability, and up until you reach 0. If you reach 0 durability, your weapon will be doing half damage. But this is a steady process. It doesn't just drop from 1 to 0, from 1 at full damage and then 0 half damage. No, it actually steadily decreases as your DP decreases. So if you're at half DP, you'll be doing about 75% of your normal damage, right? You repair DPs by simply going to a workshop, selecting the repair option that we'll see later, and just fills it up all the way to the top. Very, very easy. Unfortunately, there's no other way to maintain them. You can slow them down. You can slow the degradation with a battle ability. It's called Temper. If you use that in a chain, you will slowly degrade. I mean, it will slow the degradation, but you won't really stop it. You will just make it last a bit longer. It's still useful, but just don't expect to actually stop it. You have to go to a workshop to restore the DP. PPs instead work the opposite way. Those are phantom points. The meter increases as the item absorbs the dark. So when you attack, you'll gain a certain amount of PPs. I'm not sure how that works. If it's depends on the damage or depends on the weapon, then I'm not sure. But basically, when your PPs are full, your weapon will do double damage. And this again is a steady process. So at 0 PPs, you'll be at base damage. At half PP, you'll be at about 50% more damage, and then at full PP, you'll be at double damage. Now, PPs are easily filled because you can just attack stuff a bunch of times. There's an ability called Instill. It's a chain ability. Use that, and you will quickly fill it up. Now, PPs actually degrade on their own if you keep your weapon out in battle mode and don't do anything. So this is an incentive to put your weapon away when you're not fighting stuff, because otherwise you will just lose PP over time. You also lose PP when you repair. So for example, here I'm full on PP and I lost some DP. So I'm gonna go ahead real quick and repair, and you will see. Then after I've done that, as you can see, I've lost some PPs. So I lose the same amount of DPs that I need to repair the weapon. I lose the PPs. So if I were down by 10, I lose 10 PP. And that's all there is to it. If you don't have enough PPs to repair your DPs, it doesn't matter because your DPs will just go back to full anyway. You'll just be at 0 here. So don't worry about your DPs not refilling. They actually always refill. They just take some PPs if you have them. If you don't, it's fine. Doesn't matter. So that explains DPs and PPs. The idea is that you want those to as full as possible every time, because that way you're always at the best possible condition. And now the class affinity and type part, and this is where things get complicated if they weren't complicated enough. So let's sure, we can start from class and affinity. So let's start from class. So as you can see here, this is the item's level of strength against the human, demi-human enemies, against beast, undead, phantom, dragon, evil. So these are the 6 enemy types you can find in the game. Of course, these are types. So under human, you will find like knights, but you also find like orcs, goblins, stuff like that. It says humanoid, all the stuff that isn't humanoid. Beast, of course, is like maybe crabs, lizards. The dogs we fought in the catacombs and whatnot, those are all beasts. Undeads are like zombies, skeletons, and so on and so forth. So these values may increase or decrease as you fight. How does that work? Well, let's say I hit a human enemy with a basic attack. When I do that, there's a chance that my human goes up by 1. But when human goes up by 1, there's also a chance that beast and undead go down by 1. It may be only beast, it may be only undead, it may be both. There's a chance that happens. Any of the combination actually works. Maybe none, maybe both, maybe only one of them. So as you build one property, the 2 that follow it may get lower. So as you can see here, I've been using this weapon mainly against beast and dragons. And in fact, I got 9 on beast, and the undead and phantom went down. Then I used them on dragon, and evil and human went down. Because it wraps up, right? If I use it on dragon, evil and a human go down. If I use it on evil, human and beast go down. So this is a cycling list. And this is pretty much how it works. These add a little bit of damage against certain types of enemies. This isn't really important. It's important early on in the game. Up pretty much where we got now, at above ground. First time you have above ground. But really, what you will find is that the affinity is the important one. Class is useful, not gonna lie, but it's really just a bonus. You can nurture a weapon to fight a certain type of enemy, and if you do, try to double it down like I did, like for example, beast and dragon. human and phantom, undead and evil. Because again, like for example, if I nurture a weapon against humans, beast and undead will get worse, but not phantom. And if I attack phantoms with the same weapon, then dragon and evil will go down, but it won't affect human. So if you really want to build weapons toward certain class of enemies, you can do that. Try to double it down, but again, it's not really necessary, and it doesn't really give you much of a benefit. In fact, it only gives you as much half of benefit as the affinity would give you. Affinity, well, to give you an idea, as what I was talking about, if you build, let's say an enemy is, let's say that we have a human enemy and that is weak against fire, right? So if you build 100 points, which is the maximum against human, it would be the same as building 50 points on fire. So you'd rather build fire because you're just it's just twice as good. That's all there is to it. So affinities tell you the damage type of the weapon. So in this case, it'll be a fire weapon because fire is the only one that's lit up. There are 7 affinities. We have physical, air, fire, earth, water, light, and dark. And it works very similarly on how classes worked. So for example, if I need an enemy that's weak to fire, my fire may go up, and the opposite of fire may go down, water. If I hit an enemy that's weak to air, earth may go down, and vice versa. If I hit an enemy that's weak to light, dark may go down, and vice versa. Physical is a little bit weird. If you hit an enemy that's weak to physical, your physical may go up, but any of the other 6 may go down in any combination. So maybe all 6 will go down by 1. Who knows? Maybe only 2 or 3 will go down. Maybe none. Maybe only 1. It doesn't matter because it opposes all of them. At the same time, when you hit an enemy that's weak to any of these 6, your physical may go down as well. So for example, let's say I hit an enemy weak to water, then my fire may go down, but my physical may as well go down. And as you can see, there's only one that is lit up here. This is the highest one, and that's what defines the weapon's element. So in this case, this weapon will do fire damage. As easy as that. If I get 2 more physical, actually 3 more, I think. If you get this to 10, then I will do physical damage. Then I get this to 11, and it does fire damage again. This is very simple, really. And finally, we have the type. Type does not change. Type is defined by what the weapon is. So, for example, actually, let me go over here. Type. The spear is a piercing weapon. It says down at the bottom, piercing. And as you can see here, I cannot check the type because the spear itself doesn't really have a type value. It has a type, which is piercing, but doesn't really have a value. The value comes from the grip. So grips have different values of all the 3 types, blunt, edged, and piercing. And then when you equip a blade on them, you'll see that now piercing is lit up because I equipped the piercing blade on that grip. So I'll get 4 in piercing. Obviously, the higher the number, the better. This will check against, maybe attack let's say attack an enemy that has a high piercing resist on their armor. Then that piercing number will be checked against the piercing resistance of the enemy. So of course, if I were to attach an edge of the blade to this grip, I'll get 12, which is pretty good. And that's it, I guess, of class affinity and type. That's how it works, really. Remember, it's only the lit up that counts. Okay, affinity and type, it's only one that's lit up. That's the one that counts. The other ones pretend they don't exist. Okay, just pretend they don't count at all. And of course, class, they all lit up because it depends on what enemy you attack. So, again, only one will be taken in consideration depending on what enemy you attack, right? Now, you can see here that this weapon has a gem slot. Some weapons, actually some grips, come with gem slots. And this is a static property of the grip, and basically you can put gems into them. We'll see what that does later, but basically gives you special effects, statistics, and so on and so forth. Sorry, so on and so forth, but yeah. Now one more thing about grips, real quick. As I said, grips are static entities. This one is a grip for pole arms. There are grips that are good for different types of weapon. So this one, for example, is good for axes, maces, and staves. And let's see what else we have. Daggers, swords, and great swords. So a grip may fit different types of weapon, different weapon classes. And of course they each have different blunt edge and piercing values. You can see on the top left the gems they can carry as well. I have some that carry 1s, most of them carry 0, because we're still pretty early on in the game here. The maximum you can carry with gems wise is 3. And most endgame grips have 3. But yeah, those are grips basically. Yeah, crossbows grips are arrows, but they essentially they work as grips. They're just the grip that crossbows use. Now let's actually talk about making a weapon. Since we're on the subject of weapon, so to make a weapon you simply have to assemble it. And you can only do this at workshops, by the way. It doesn't matter which workshop, just a workshop is fine. So you select the blade, you select your grip. Like for example, let's say I want to make back my Soul Kiss. It was made by the Scramazex, so I will equip the Scramazex. There you go. I will select the Scramazex. And I will select the grip that actually fits there. And the ones that I cannot use will be grayed out. So I can only select these ones. Now, keep in mind that my Scramazex is, well, there's no type, of course, because this is just a blade. It is piercing. So I most likely want to find a grip that gives me a lot of piercing and maybe slots to equip gems. So I could go for 1 piercing, that's not good. 2, this is good. I think this has a gem slot too. Yeah, it does. But, for example, I could go for this web-tailed. 4 piercing, but no slots. And this is really where you choose what to do. Is it better to have maybe less piercing, but 1 slot so I can improve it? Or maybe I want more piercing, but no slots? Those are strategic choices that you will make. Let's say you go with this. So if you go for one that has a slot, you can also put gem in there while you make the weapon. You can always do it later. Gems can be swapped in and out anytime, even during combat outside of workshops. So it doesn't really matter. So let's say I go for this web tilt. I'll press OK because I'm done. Complete attachment. Yes, I will confirm. And this is fun. You can name your weapons. And you can name it wherever you want. If you press start, it will give you the name of the blade as default, so you don't have to write it. Oh, I just didn't even do it. Let's just actually do it. Oh, I think I actually made it. Yeah, I made it. I think it gave you the Scramazex name. You can split weapons, so you can disassemble them. Yeah, there it is. So there you go. If I want to, you can split blades and grips apart. The reason why you may want to do that was, of course, if you want to combine and or change the grip. But the other reason why you may want to do that is because, remember, you have a limited inventory space. You can only carry 8 weapons, but you can carry 16 blades and 16 grips. So let's say you're full on weapons, you find a new weapon, you're like, oh damn, what do I do with this? Well, I can just split it apart and I'll recombine it later at the workshop. It's fine. So we talked about weapons. Let's see, what else we can do? Let's talk about gems, since they are part of weapons. So when you attach the gems, you can also attach them to shields. We'll talk about them later, but although it's pretty much the same thing. So I only have this weapon. You can only attach gems to weapons, so you need to make weapons first. So this weapon has a slot. You select the gem, and there you go. These are the gems we currently have. And you can see the gems carry some class information, some affinity information, and also some basic stats: strength, intelligence, and agility. Those will be added to your weapon. The affinity and the class information as well. They will all be added to your weapon. Keep this in mind, this is important. And some gems also have special effects, like down there you see increases the success rate on non-magical attacks by 20%. This one increases power against undead, and you can see it because it gives a big increase on undead. This one on human, this one on dragon. And they also offer different stats than the Braveheart. So let's say I want the Braveheart. I will gain 3 on all classes, 3 on all affinities, 2 strength and 5 intel and 5 agility. And so there you go, this is my new weapon. And as you can see down there, it went from what it was, I think it was 12 strength to 14. And it was a -7 agility, it's now -2. See how important gems are? And this is what you can do to improve your minus modifier on agility. If you equip like 2 or 3 gems that are good agility boosters, you can get to either 0 agility or even a plus. So maybe a weapon, if you equip it, it'll actually make you more agile and more likely to land hits instead of less likely. And this is especially true for weapons in the end game that tend to be pretty heavy, and they're like -9 and -10. And yeah, that's important for those weapons especially. Remember to confirm and say yes, otherwise if you cancel out, your gem will not be equipped. Remember it, because it happened to me a lot. And these are gems basically. You can attach them to shields and it works the same way, really. I'm just gonna go over it real quick, but there you go. Gems, shields of gems. And gems will give shields, class and affinity information as well as statistics. It works the same way, really. You want to make your shield good against human to protect you better against humans or dragons or whatever. Say you want the shield to protect me against dragons, there you go. Put the dragon eye on, that's it. That's all you do, really. And now we talked about weapons, we talked about gems. Let's talk about shields. Actually, let's talk about armor first, because shields will come into play later. Armor, really, it's even simpler than weapons. It only has DPs, it does have class, affinity, and type, and those will come into play. Actually, let me get another one like this one. Class, affinity, and type, and those will come into play whenever you get hit. So let's say I get hit. This one, well, actually, let's do this one, the bear mask. Let's say I get hit where I have the bear mask, and if it's a dragon, it has 2, so I will take less damage from dragons, a bit more from phantom and evil. I will take less damage from air and fire, but more from light and dark. And I will take a little less damage from blunt, but base damage from edged and piercing. Simple as that. Those are all modifiers. Depending on the class of the enemy attacking, the affinity of their attack, and the type of their attack, the damage at the end will change. And down here, if I can get to it, armor, just like weapons, add attack. Armors have defense. So when I get hit with this thing on, I will get a boost to my strength by 2, I boost my intelligence by 9, and it doesn't impact my agility. So as you can see here, it gives a chance to hit and evade. So if I have this on, it doesn't really impact my agility, but some of them, I think, if I look around hard enough, there you go. So these knuckles, for example, they have an agility modifier by 2, so if I equip those, my agility goes down by 2. Both when I attack and when I defend. It's not just the defensive one. Heavier armor will make you less likely to hit as well, so be careful. Those unfortunately cannot be modified by gems, because armor cannot have gems. So you'll rely on your weapon and on your shield to boost your agility, because those can equip gems. Armors don't. But of course, as you will improve and you'll get better and better armor with better material, you'll see that this modifier tends to go down, and these numbers tend to go really high. Now, I have a bit more to talk about what these do exactly, because it seems self-explanatory. Actually, let's talk about it right now. It seems self-explanatory. Like if I equip a Knuckles, I get 7 more strength and 6 more intelligence, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. Let's actually look at our status first. So, Ashley has 4 types of armor you can equip: body, head, arm, and arm. So you have really, it's only one type of arm. You have arm, head, and body, but you have 2 arms, so you equip 2 of them. Alright. So let's say I have 103 in all stats. Good. You start the game with 100, by the way. Let's say I go over here and I equip. On the right arm, I'm going to equip my Iron Knuckle we saw before. So 7 strength, 6 intelligence, minus 2 agility, okay? Good. I've done it. Let's go back to the status screen. So you would expect your stats to change, but they didn't. I'm still at 103 on both columns. And you'd be like, wait, but I have it equipped. What gives? But actually, if you go over here you'll see that it did change on the equipped column, because it only matters if your enemy hits you in this location. So if an enemy hits me on the head, it will have to contend with 103 strength, 103 intelligence, and 103 agility. But if he hits me in the right arm, he'll have to contend with 110 strength, 109 intelligence, 101 agility. So this means that you can have different defenses for different types of locations. Because remember, just like you can hit an enemy in different locations, so can the enemies can. And just like you will learn area of effect spells, also will the enemies. And so when the enemies cast an area of effect attack, it may happen that some parts take more or less damage, and that may depend on that may depend on like the intelligence values. A big example is the wizard probe right here, and or the affinities you may have. So the wizard robe will boost my intelligence to 128. So if an enemy attacks me with an area of effect spell, and it's all of my body parts, the right, left arm, head, and legs will take a lot of damage, but the body is heavily protected against magic because of that 25 boost. So the body will take a lot less damage. And this is actually a technique or a strategy that early game works really well, having this wizard robe on the body. So yeah, this is how it works. It doesn't really change your base stats, because those are not modified by armor. The armor only comes into place when you're attacked. However, shields and accessories work a little different. So first of all, let's talk shields. Let's equip. We can go with the Tars. I actually found this buckler off screen. There you go. Let's look at the stats real quick. 8, 5, minus 3, okay? Let's go back to the status screen once more. And again, our status haven't changed, because the shield, again, only works when you get attacked. It only works when you're in battle mode. So if you're not in battle mode, you get attacked, your shield won't do anything. So draw your weapon on your shield, if you want your shield to actually do something. So what does the shield do? Well, what the shield does, really, it's very simple. All it does is add their stats to all of your body parts. So when an enemy attacks my right arm, for example, he'll have to contend with my base stats, the stats of the armor, and the stats of the shield. So in this case, I can't really show it on screen, but let's say an enemy strikes me on the right arm, he'll have to contend with 110 strength plus the 8 from the shield. So it'll be 118 strength he'll have to contend with. So this is why shields are very powerful. Because they protect all of your body parts, that means then again, area of effect spells that hits multiple of your body parts, they all get reduced. All the damage values will be reduced by your shield. Finally, we have one last part of equipment is the accessory. Oh, of course, one thing about shields, I didn't mention it, but it was pretty obvious. Shields have also class, affinity, and types, and they will determine whether or not they're good against certain attacks or bad against certain attacks. Of course, and they can have gems, just like weapons. The accessory works similarly to shields. This one, for example, gives 1 intelligence. If I go to the status screen, it actually has changed on the equipped column right here. Because accessories actually modify your base stats. Therefore, they kind of work like shields because they will protect all of your body. So this one, oops, wrong button. This one, the root necklace, gives me 1 intelligence, so all my body parts now have 1 more intelligence that they will present to enemy attacks. They will also have 5 more undead, less 5 phantom and dragon, and 5 more on evil. So I'm a little better protected against undead and evil, but a little bit less against phantom and dragons. This is why if you watched episode 5, I believe, I actually removed this accessory before fighting the dragon, because it would give me a -5 on all body parts, and that wouldn't be great, right? And again, it has got affinities and types. Oh yeah, one thing I didn't mention about armor. Just like weapons, armor will change their class and affinity, not type though. You can change type, but not in combat. So of course, if this armor gets hit by a lot of human attacks, it will get better on human and weaker against beast and undead. Affinity works the same. You get hit by a lot of air, good, you better against air, but you're worse against earth. Works the same as weapons. Type is static, but you can improve this through combining, as we'll get later. The crafting system, right? That is what makes them better. Accessories that are purely static. They don't really change anything. Like, they stay what they are. They cannot be improved. They cannot be switched around. And this is why later on it'll be very useful to have different accessories for like different defenses, like elemental affinities defenses, or like type defenses or class defenses, because you can just swap them out and they will defend your entire body. So yeah, keep it in mind. That's how accessories work. Very useful. And then I think we covered... Talked about shields, talked about armor, talked about gems, talked about accessories. I talked about all this stuff, and I think it's time to go into the setup menu and crack this one open. Oh yeah, one last thing actually, before we do that, this is very quick, but all of your body parts have 200 HP, and they do not increase at all, even if your total HP go up, they always have 200 HP. And of course, they reach the dying status at 0 HP. And they heal up just as you heal up. So if you heal up, all of your body parts will be healed by the same amount. One thing about body parts, actually two. The right arm is very important because enemies will attack your right arm if possible. They will go for your right arm if it's in range. So if you have two knuckles, give the best one to the right arm because that's the one that's more likely to be attacked. Also, the body is important because single target spells, heal spells, and traps, healing traps will look for your body armor. So if, for example, you get hit by, for example, I don't know, a thunderbolt spell, I don't remember what the name is. Let's say it's a thunderbolt spell. So it's an air. If your armor has a lot of air attribute, then you'll take a lot less damage. You know, right? It only looks at your body armor. Doesn't look at anything else. Obviously, it looks at your accessory, but it doesn't look at leg armor, head armor. Doesn't do anything. It just looks at your body. And that's really it, I think. Don't forget anything, right? No. Alright. So let's crack open the setup menu. Assemble weapons, we've seen it. Just put a blade and a grip, make a new weapon. Really easy. That's gems, very easy. Select a weapon and a shield, and put gems into it. Disassemble, it's again, split a weapon. You can disassemble shields, but all it does is removing gems. So if you want to just quickly remove gems from shield, go over here and start selecting them. Obviously these ones don't have anything, so they're all grayed out. But that's the way you can do. Rename, simple as that. Choose a weapon and rename it. And just call it however you want, you know? Just go ahead, you can delete, you can do all this sort of stuff. So we'll just call it Rusty Nail XD, because why not? Alright, and there you go. Now this weapon will be known as Rusty Nail XD. Repair, as I said, restores all your DPs to full. Fills up your DP, fills up, uses DPs in case you have them. Simple, just hit repair, hit yes, and you're good. And now we get to this. This is by far the most complex thing in the entire game. The combine option. So combining is how you improve your gear in this game, because Ashley doesn't really improve. I mean, he does gain some HP, some MPs, some stats here and there, and your weapons do grow as you use them against stuff, but if you don't combine them and make them better, you're not going anywhere, because this is what you can use to improve the base stats, because the base stats, they're not going to change, right? It's only your class affinities that can change, but this is how you improve the base stats. Let's start with shields, not because they're less important, but because it's easier for me to show you this process with shields, because I have a lot less of them. So as simple as, well, the concept of it is simple. You just take two things and you just you know, put them together, and that creates that third thing, right? But because you are pretty much free to do almost everything in this, the combinations are almost limitless. There is a huge table of combination that you can consult if you want to know what's gonna happen, but you can see the results. So, but if you want to be informed on what things you can combine, which is something I personally like to do in New Game Plus when I try to make actually very strong weapons, I actually consult that chart. But yeah, for example here, one thing before getting into this, the combine option is actually limited by one thing. This workshop work of art. The following materials may be combined: wood, leather, and bronze. So I will only be able to combine wood, leather, and bronze equipment. If I try to combine something that's made of iron, I won't be able to do it. So for example, I do have not a shield, but I do have a blade for sure that's made of iron, and yeah, one's made of silver. See, this one I'm not able to combine. The second workshop deals in bronze and iron, so I will be able to combine those there. Okay, but not in this one. And this is really just meant so that you cannot just like farm enemies and get super powerful weapons on the first workshop. You have to actually progress the story. It limits what you can do for that reason. But you know, once you're in New Game Plus and you unlock the final workshop, that one has all materials, so you can just go crazy. Anyway, well, I can talk about materials real quick, but there are really only a handful of them. There is bronze. In order of potency, we have bronze, iron, silver, Hagane, and Damascus. Now, shields also have wood, which is worse than bronze, and armor also have leather, which is worse than bronze. However, wood and leather combine with Damascus to make Damascus, so it has to improve Damascus equipment to keep it Damascus. Because of course Damascus is the best and you want to keep it that way. Because if you try to combine Damascus with anything that is not Damascus, wood, or leather, you'll end up going to Hagane, which is good, but it's not as good. Damascus stuff are really like the ultimate equipments. So, that being said, there are some rules to combining different things, but maybe we'll discuss them later in the video. For now, let's actually discuss the process real quick, but it's simple. Just place two stuff together and see what happens. You know, for example, this combination here, a bronze targe and a bronze buckler gives me a bronze pelta shield. I could probably do a little bit better by taking the buckler that's made of wood and the targe that's made of bronze. Yeah, I'll still make it a bronze pelta shield, but I use the worst one, so yeah, that could be a better choice. So in order to know whether you're doing something that is actually good for you, look at the base stats on the bottom right. So you have 6-9 minus 1, 8-5 minus 3, and the result is 7-5 minus 3. So actually the Targe seems to be a bit better because there's one more strength. So really not that great of a combination. But I do have the Spelta shield, and I can combine it with the Targe to make a quad shield, and this seems better because I have 6-10 minus 1, 8-5 minus 3, 9-8 minus 3. Yeah, this is better. So I could probably do that. Now, one thing to keep in mind actually before that, let me show you something else. So you see these two bucklers here? They have class, affinity, and types. They each have different values on them because they've been more or less used. What if we combine them? We still get a buckler. However, let's look at the class. So we have a bunch of minuses here. There's a positive and a bunch of minuses and a lot of zeros. So the result here is a buckler, but it maintains this one on human, and it carries the -5 evil from this one. So effectively, when you're combining stuff, you're carrying some of the properties of class, affinity, and type, and you're actually fusing them a little bit. This is hard to explain, but the most basic explanation I can give to this is that you're carrying the best and the worst with you. Let's see if affinity does a better job on this. Yeah, this has 8 fire and 8 earth, so I'm probably gonna carry them over. Yes, I am carrying them over. So I'm carrying over the good 8 fire and earth from this one, and I'm carrying over the 8 physical from this one. That's the result. And I'm carrying the worst from air and water. Yeah. And I'm carrying the worst light and dark from this one. Actually goes to -3 because this is -4 in light and dark. This is -2, so averages to -3. So really, you really are fusing the two. You're carrying the best and the worst from both worlds. Type-wise, type is a little bit different. Type kind of averages, but not really. Because you see this buckler has 10 blunt. This buckler is also 10 blunt. But the result is 12 blunt. So it does get better against blunt attacks, even though just a little bit. Right? This is how you improve the type on shields and armor. You combine two things that they don't necessarily have to be the same. In this case they are. But, you know, you'll get better and better type. One thing you need to know, however, before combining, your DPs and PPs will change. I have 69 and 54 here, I'll get 61. They average. So you get, the result will have average max DP and average max PP. So the more you combine, the more these numbers will get worse and worse. So once you reach your top, stop. That's a little bit of an alliteration there, but you get it. Once you get to the top of the tier, and the shield doesn't get any better, don't just keep piling on it. Because the more you pile on it, the worse it gets on DPs and PPs. It's not that big of a deal, but it's what it is. I just have to say it. So, for example, a good idea here would be to do something like this. So, shields. So, I already established that a Targe plus a Pelta shield makes a quad shield. Actually, I can't do much more than that, because even if I combine the two bucklers, I'm not really gonna do anything with those. So yeah, can't really do much with these. One thing, but like here's how you can tell, more or less, how to improve your equipment. Think of it as tiers. Like you have several tiers of equipment. Like for example, like here, I think the buckler are like the worst shield you can have. The Pelta shield is just above the buckler, and the Targe is just above the Pelta. So if buckler is tier 1, Pelta is tier 2, Targe is tier 3. What if I want tier 4? Well, I take tier 3 and I combine it with tier 2, and that gives me tier 4. What if I want tier 5? Well, I take tier 4 and I combine it with tier 3. So you're always taking the best you have, you combine it with the one that is slightly worse. That should give you the next tier. Sometimes this doesn't work. So let's say I want tier 7 and I have tier 6 and tier 5 doesn't work. Then let's look for tier 4. Let's go one below and see if that works. If that doesn't work, you might have to double down. So let's say I want tier 9. Tier 8, I have tier 8 and tier 7 doesn't work. Tier 6 doesn't work. Then I try tier 8 again. So 2 tier 8 will maybe give me a tier 9. That's how it works. So look for the one just below. Then if that doesn't work, the one 2 below. And if that doesn't work, it's probably the same one. You combine 2, you'll get the next one. And that's usually true near the end. So as you get to the top tier of your equipment line, you'll have to combine the same one. But in this case, it's tier 2 plus tier 3 gives me tier 4. So after this, if I want to improve it, I'll have to look for another Pelta. For another Targe. So if I want the next, I need another Targe. And there you go, I combined them. And if I try to combine this with buckler, I'm gonna get another buckler, which it's not a good idea. So nope. Armor works the same way, except now we have different types. So we have head, body, legs, and armor, right? So in this case, the first rule is to combine one thing with the same thing. So like I'm gonna combine leg armor with leg armor and nothing else. So let's see, for example, these two, they don't really improve a lot. Maybe they're carrying some affinities, maybe they carry some type, Not really, because these long boots are 1 in all types. The ones I'm starting from, they have 2. Not worth it. So nothing here. Maybe I can do some stuff with you. Nah, let's see. Oh yeah. So 298, 562, 663, -3. So it is getting better. So this could be a combination I could go for, because it's improving it. And then maybe, because since this is the tier that's before the ring sleeves, I'm gonna give it a shot. See if I have my crafting skills down. Ring sleeve plus knuckles makes chain sleeve, and it is better. It is better than my ring sleeve by 1 point. Look at that. Intelligence goes up by 1. So this is a good combination. Let's do it. And there you go. This is how you do it. Look for the tier just below. Look, if it doesn't work, look for the tier 2 below. That doesn't work either, look for the same piece. So you essentially, if you don't know, of course, you may like, wait, why I don't know what the tier right below me is. Just look for the one that has similar stats. Like, for example, this is a bad example, but the Jerky and the Curious look like they're kind of similar stats. They don't really, but that you get the idea. If the stats are, the base stats are similar, but they just have maybe 1 or 2 points of difference, then it might be that they are there, right? Okay, and that's armor. But on armor, again, on armor, you can combine like a head with like a body. What does that do? Well, you can try. And right now I don't really have a good example, but sometimes you may end up, usually when you combine different class of things, the result is worse. That does that. Let's just try some random combination, because sometimes you get some cool stuff, but I don't seem... Yeah, this makes knuckles, which are worse. Sometimes maybe you combine like a body with a leg and you get a headpiece. There's a lot of trial and error in this, and this is what the game is. Blades work the same. Combine the same type of blade with the same type. So don't take the Scram's axe and combine it with the sword, because it's probably gonna end up something weird. Like, for example, broadsword. If I combine it with the scimitar, I still get a sword, but let's see. With a battle axe, I still get an axe. Well, I have to do something weird. There you go. See, if I combine a broadsword with an axe, I get a casting staff. You know, it might be useful, but you know, depends on what you want to do. Again, maybe let's take the bow. Let's combine it with the rapier or the scimitar, and I get a knife. Or if I take a bow and combine it with the broadsword, I get a knife again. Combine it with a hammer. You always get a knife apparently. What if I take this? I get a sword out of this. So you always want to combine like scimitar with rapier. Could be a good idea. They have similar stats. Look at their base stats. 9 and 11. See what happens. Scimitar and rapier. And I get a spatha, which is actually worse, so it's not that great. I have to look for something else here, which I probably don't have. And let's say battle axe with hand axe with battle axe. They have kind of similar stats. Let's see what it does. No, it makes a hand axe, so this is not right. I want to upgrade it. I don't think I have a lot to do here, really. But I think now it's time to talk about combination of materials. This will apply for both weapons and armor. Also shields. Well, they all have a material. I think I'm gonna take a break, and I'll see you at the other workshop, because I can't really do much here. So I'll see you in a bit. And here we are. We're the Magic Hammer. I just arrived with the power of editing. And here I will tell you about materials. There are really only a handful of rules you need to keep in mind about combining when you have materials, different materials. And they are these. Rule number 1. Bronze plus iron as long as you're combining stuff that are the same class, always results in Agane. Agane is the second best material, only second to Damascus. Some may argue that it's better than Damascus in some way, but no, Damascus is by far the better, in my opinion. But Agane is much easier to make, because you just need bronze and iron, you make it. There you go. The only time where that doesn't happen, and if you try to like combine different stuff, like if I take a bronze scimitar, I might not make it Agane. In fact, it stays iron. So as long as the combination are two things that have the same class, that will make Agane. And again, Agane is useful because it's lighter than bronze and iron, and it's more powerful than bronze and iron. So it's just a plus in all possible ways. So that's rule number one. Bronze and iron always makes Agane. Rule number two that I can't show right now because I'm not in a good workshop. Sometimes bronze and Agane makes silver. Now silver is worse than Agane, but if you really want silver, you want to do bronze plus Agane. For some reason, you have to put the bronze on the first slot, otherwise it won't work, and you get Agane instead. So if you don't want the silver, just swap the two components, and you'll probably get yourself Agane instead of silver. Rule number three, sometimes, this is for New Game Plus really, sometimes silver plus Agane makes Damascus. And I think here, again, silver has to be on the top slot for that to work. I never had that to work. It's very rare, and it may only work with certain specific pieces of armor. It's really, the best rule is bronze and iron makes Agane. That's the one you need to remember. And sometimes, you know, bronze and Agane will make silver, so keep in mind that if you don't want silver, switch the two slots and you get Agane instead. Other than that, there's a fourth rule that I mentioned earlier. If you have Damascus and you want to keep Damascus, you can only combine with Damascus, wood, or leather, because anything else is going to give you either silver or Agane, or even worse. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like again, the most important rule is bronze and iron equals Agane. And at the first workshop, you can actually do that. You can combine your two spears into Agane spear, which is better in all stats. I mean, what else do you want, right? Like, what else can I do here, for example, to show you? One good combination that you can do early on in the game, I will repeat that in my Let's Play, is, if I remember correctly, you take the scimitar and the rapier, you make a Spatha, which is worse than the rapier, but wait for it, because if I combine that again with the not the short sword, because that was a drop, with the rapier, these are all forced drops, by the way, I'm not inventing anything. These are all things you will have by this point if you haven't trashed it. You will get a short sword with 17 strength. This is one of the best weapons you can get up to this point. And it's made out of Agane. Look at that. Now unfortunately I cannot combine it further with the short sword that I have here, because I have a short sword. And if I could, I will do it, but yeah, I can't. But this is a good time to show you that, you know, better materials will have better stats. I mean, look at the short sword made of iron. 15-1 minus 4. What the one made out of Agane, 17-2 minus 3, is in all ways better. There's no way why I would use this one again. So this one I could just try to combine it into other stuff to see what happens. Maybe I'll get some good things out of it that I can combine with other stuff. I don't know, there's a lot of trial and error, and there's a lot of experimentation, but this is what it is. This is what you bought the game for. It's this. You're gonna spend a lot of time in here. Goblin Club. Make another example here. Battle Axe maybe? That's the hand axe made of Agane. Can I keep that? Let's see, the hand axe again. And there you go. I can keep it blunt. Do check what the type is in the end for some classes, because, see, again, if I had chosen the battle axe, I would have gotten a hand axe. This is blunt, but the result is edged, so be careful. You don't want to change your type, but maybe you do, or maybe you don't. In case I don't, so let's go ahead and use the hand axe instead, because I want my blunt weapon to stay blunt, because I want a blunt weapon. I want it blunt, because I want to exploit blunt weaknesses if I need to. There you go. And that's really all there is to it. Again, there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error, a lot of seeing what does what. And there are there are several rules you can... There are other rules I could teach you, like for example, the fact that heavy maces, whatever you combine with them, it will keep the material of the heavy mace. Unless it's another heavy mace, of course. But like if I take this and I put in a Ganizord, I can't do it, but you know, just if I could put an Ganizord in here, I would get bronze. If I put a silver, I get bronze. Because the heavy mace rules for material, but these are like complex things that you will learn if you read wikis or guides and whatnot. The basics again are these. Remember that Iron and Bronze makes a gun. Remember to combine the same class with the same class to improve it. And if you can't, and you have something that you don't have a use for, try to combine it with other stuff. See what happens. Maybe it'll get something good. Another reason why you want to combine stuff is, for example, to carry over stuff. Like, for example, again, I had the spear. Was this the spear? Yeah, that has 11 beasts. And I'm like, man, I fought beasts with the spear, but I don't like it anymore, right? Maybe I want to fight beasts with something else. Maybe I find that a broadsword would be better against beasts because reasons, and there you go. Now I have my spear with beast, I combine it with this one. And look at that, now I have a broadsword that had -1 on beast, now he has 11 beast, because I'm carrying over the class from this one. And I think I'm also carrying the fire from this one, right? Yep, I am. This one is 9 physical too, so... It might go physical until I gain 1 point of fire. But see, there you go. Let's say you have used a rapier, or like, let's say you use not a rapier, it's not really a class. Let's say you use a daggers against undead, and then you figure out, I should have used a club against undead. Okay, let's put the dagger with all the undead bonuses. Let's mix it with something, make a club, has the undead bonuses, good. There you go. That's what you do. That's not always possible, but when it is, it's really good, right? That's really all there is to it. I think I have explained everything. That was a lot. And yeah, that's how it works. Those are all the stats, the crafting system, the armor, the weapons. I think I explained everything. If anything else comes to mind, I'll add it later. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next video.